Parker Wolfe, welcome back to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
Doing good, man. Excited to be on again. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. I do have a question for you off the top of my head. We are recording this on May 2nd. When I think of May, I think of school wrapping up. What's the UNC Chapel Hill schedule looking like these days?
Done with school, done with classes.
Oof.
Got some finals to finish up, but one tomorrow and then a couple online quiz things. Should be too hard. I'm glad to be done and ready to just, focus everything on running and not so much on school. Yeah.
You're a junior in college, right?
Yeah, junior year.
Okay.
So I got another year, but I'm jealous of all the seniors on my team that are finished for good. I wish, but we'll get there.
So, talking on the last 2 years of experience, what's it like in this weird period where, school's wrapping up, you don't have schoolwork anymore, but the track season is just starting to heat up and starting to get really serious. Is this next month really fun because you get to live like a pro runner, or do you kind of miss the school aspect to take your mind off of it?
Oh, not at all. I don't miss it at all. Yeah. I mean, Milt always talks about how it's his favorite time of year. Everybody leaves. It's kind of just a few teams left on campus. You've got the, lacrosse guys, baseball, I think is still going, and it's just us. And we kind of just get free reign of campus, and it's nice, quiet time. And yeah, getting to live like a pro runner is kind of my favorite thing. I don't mind it. I'm not a big school fan, so I'm excited for the next few weeks to months almost. So long time. I'm excited for it.
How does that work from a institution perspective? Like, does the dining hall, is that still open, or like, what are some of those different things? Like, how open is campus? Is it pretty shut down after kids leave, or do you guys still kind of get free reign over everything?
I mean, you can definitely go on campus, and I would guess the student store stays open, and like the rec centers and stuff. I think dining halls completely close. I think they close in like a week. But I live off campus, so making my own meals and going to the store and stuff. I'm used to it now, so that's kind of what we're rocking with at this point.
We probably talked about this last time with the Gordon Ramsay question, but I honestly do too many of these podcasts to remember people's responses. Do you like cooking for yourself, or is it kind of a chore?
I do like it. It depends, I guess. When I'm in a time crunch, I don't like it because I take a while. But I do like cooking. I'm getting more into it now and like learning more recipes for stuff. And yeah, I enjoy it. There's a calming aspect to it that I like. Um, you know, Cutting onions up and making steaks. Those are especially when you have like a big group of guys over and you're all making steaks. It's good atmosphere, good vibes. So.
In my podcast with Milt, he's mentioned a few times having people over for dinner. I have to ask, and I do also think that he mentioned that he is not a very good cook. So I have to ask, and I know he'll listen to this. So shout out Milt wherever you're
Yeah.
listening to this, treadmill or in your office. I hope you're having a great day. What's the best meal that you've had at the Miltenberg household?
Ooh, at Milt's house, I'm trying to think. Last time he made like I'm pretty sure it's like chicken fajitas or chicken tacos, one of the two, and that was probably my favorite. Chicken and beef, and kind of go through the line, queso, guac. That's what I'd go with. Yeah, usually grabbing one of those, sitting out by the fireplace, and playing wiffle ball with his kids. I will say I was the MVP last time. I hit like 3 home runs, and I was pretty sad. I definitely deserved the MVP award for that. But
Wiffle ball is an underrated sport. I'll say that. I
yeah,
feel like
that's
I've not heard that in a while.
very
Someone
true.
playing wiffle
Very
ball.
true. I know it's hilarious. It was like his kids, and then a bunch of college guys acting like kids because we haven't played wiffle ball in like 5 years, 6 years. So it was pretty fun. Yeah.
The big thing, the big rave over the past 2 years, I feel like is pickleball. Have you picked that one up yet?
I have during COVID. My dad bought a pickleball net, and we'd like chalk out a court in our cul-de-sac, and so I got into it pretty good during COVID. And I don't play much now, unless it's like summer, but it's pretty fun. I enjoy a good pickleball game.
For you, whether it's wiffle ball or pickleball or pickup basketball, like how much of that kind of stuff are you doing in season versus out of season? And if you're doing it in season, how stressed are you in the back of your mind that like you're going to roll an ankle or something and have to call
Oh,
Milt and be like, you won't believe what just happened?
all the horror stories I've heard from past teammates, like breaking their leg playing pickup basketball. I really don't mess with that much in season at all. I would rather keep running than play some basketball. But during the summer, I'll play a little pickleball here and there with my family. Nothing. I don't. I'm a very competitive person, so it's hard for me not to like want to win. But definitely got to keep a cap on it to not injure yourself.
Speaking of other sports, at your school of North Carolina, take on Drake May going, I think, number 3 overall to the Patriots.
That sounds right. Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I'm excited. I'm a Broncos fan, number one, but second team I cheer for is the Patriots. It's cool to see him go to a team that I would actually like follow in long term, and they need him for sure. So, yeah, no, it's pretty cool to see a guy from our university go. It's like it's kind of surreal. It's like, whoa, this dude that was in my class, last year is just like now a professional NFL player making millions of dollars. But kind of interesting to see that.
Yeah. Would you ever, or do you ever come across like the bigger time celebrity athletes on campus?
Oh yeah, I see like Armando Bacot walking to class with slides on, and sometimes not sure he even has a backpack, but I do think he shows up. I see him a good bit on campus, and last year I was in a lot of my like major exercise and sports science classes, so I saw him a good bit. I had some of the basketball players in there, so you see him here and there, but not. I hear that they don't show up to class as much as they should. So.
Do you ever think about like how unfortunate it is that running is not a bigger sport? And here's what I mean by that. Drake May went number 3 overall. It's been talked about for,
Mhm.
I feel like, years at this point. And obviously the draft was a big point of people talking about him, discussing him. For you, we'll get into your recent results, but like undoubtedly, like you're a top 3 guy in the NCAA on any given day, just with how well you ran indoors. If running was as big as the NFL and we did a draft situation, they'd be talking about you on the football podcast with Drake May.
Right.
Do you ever reflect on just like how little unfortunate it is that you don't quite get your flowers with
Oh,
how good
I
you are?
know. Yeah, actually, we were talking about this the other day on one of our long runs. Ethan, on our team we were just talking about how it's such a bummer that, track isn't getting as much attention as we feel like it should. Obviously, there's more at play, but we were just talking about how much money is invested in like track and field and the amount of ads on stuff. It's just like such a bummer because of how much we love the sport and like to try to watch it. You have to like get Peacock and try to watch it through that or some like very niche streaming website, and it's definitely a bummer because I wish it was more accessible, and I do think people would watch it if it was, or maybe changing the format to make it a little more viewer friendly would be great. But no, it definitely is a bummer. I mean, I would love to see track and field on TV more often. I love watching it, and I think other people would too. But that's definitely a topic of discussion for long runs, big time. So yeah, Ethan's a big advocate. He gets all fired up. It's pretty funny.
We love Ethan. Speaking of like if track was big enough and there was the attention, but also I'm thinking they'd have to structure in a way in which this could actually make sense. What would
Mhm.
your take be on if there was like some sort of running draft where like all the big companies, Nike, On, Adidas, Hoka, Under Armour, you name them, like had their own teams and I don't know, based on the previous seasons like overall rankings, they got those spots. I feel like so many people would tune into like
Oh,
draft night.
totally. No, we were talking about this is so funny. This is like almost exactly the conversation we had on our workout on last Friday, I think. We were like, imagine if, all these brands had certain teams and like, they went up against each other during the season and had like, races against and, instead of like a lot of like, individual contracts that people have with companies, it's like big teams, kind of like cross country in college and how fun that would be. And I think that'd be super fun. A little draft would be pretty cool. Um, yeah, that it'd be a pretty sweet thing to like kind of adopt the football aspect to it, and it would bring excitement to the sport, I think. But again, definitely more at play than just us wanting that.
Yeah.
But it'd definitely be cool for sure.
I don't know. I could see it happening just many, many years down the road.
Oh,
We'd
for
have to
sure.
get to that point and have some central system that
Yeah.
governs it. I think the craziest thing within that system would be like trading. Like I think the draft night would be super interesting, but like imagine like a Nagoose for a Bowerman athlete
Oh,
trade.
that'd be
Like everyone would
hilarious.
go nuts. But then also you would have like the four like in the NBA, right? I feel like they're always taking players from Europe
Right.
and China. Like I guess Jokic or Joe, how do you say his name?
Jokic,
You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about? Yeah,
Yeah.
Jokic. Like he's probably the equivalent of like Ingebrigtsen. Like imagine
Right.
like Ingebrigtsen came and joined like Bowerman or
That'd be hilarious.
I feel like people would be so much more invested in the news. And that's why these sports are able to be talked about 24/7. Like I don't know if you ever watch Pat McAfee, but like
Yeah.
he's a football show, but he speaks for 3 hours every day throughout the year. And he's
Right.
able to do that because there's constantly news coming out of the
Yeah.
NFL, which I think a lot of times is players getting traded. So I feel like the trading would be crazy.
That would be pretty
What would
hilarious.
happen?
No, that'd be really funny to see how that plays out. So
Let's talk about last time we talked was in the fall, and I actually think it was even before. I think it was in September, so before
Mhm.
the NCAA cross
Yeah.
meet. Take me through that the national meet for you and how you did, and overall your reflection on the cross season.
That was definitely a really, really tough race. I don't know that I've ever gone out in a sub 4 mile first K, so that was definitely a good shock. I mean, as cross country season as a whole was a big learning experience for me, and I think it definitely left me with a kind of sour taste in my mouth for sure. Going into the indoor season, I came off. I think I got ninth, yeah, ninth in cross, and I definitely 2 years in a row getting ninth was definitely a punch in the gut, and getting beat by guys that I feel like I should have been able to hang with was definitely sucked. So big learning experience from cross, and and I kind of had low confidence going into the December Boston meet in BU, and I think honestly I kind of went in with it helped me take a little pressure off because I just really don't know where I'm at. It's hard with cross to know. You don't have times to show you where you are. It's kind of all relative to how the course runs, how people run. So definitely left me with a little bit of like down and out, but also kind of left me with a little less stress of just don't know where I am. So let's go into indoors and see what we can do. So that was kind of the biggest takeaway from cross. Yeah.
Something in my own personal running journey, which is minutes slower than your own, but nonetheless, I have my own experiences, is I would always take a sign of progress of when I would place the same place or maybe run a little faster than I used to. And in the past, I would be stoked about that result, but in the present, I was completely mad that I placed that place or
Yeah.
ran that time. For you, was that the case when you placed ninth in the country where legitimately how you're talking about your result there? I'm like, I forget what he placed. Was it really that bad? And then he said ninth. I'm like, oh, that's not that bad. Obviously, you placed it the year before. Do you feel like that was at least somewhat of a consolation of like, I'm really mad and I'm glad I've come far enough that a horrible day for me is a ninth place finish in the NCAA?
Yeah, that's a weird. I mean, on the bus ride back, I went up and I was sitting next to Coach Milt, and we were kind of talking about it. And he's like, "Man, I think like as much as it doesn't look like it, this ninth place this year was worth more than a lot more than it was last year." And I mean, we were just talking about how we thought we kind of worked pretty hard during the fall. I mean, having Alex Phillip come in, and he's definitely on the far end of the spectrum where that man can work out long stuff, 10-mile tempos, stuff I haven't ever done before. And so when I kind of got thrown in with him in a workout group, it was definitely a shock to kind of, I've never had somebody push me the way that he did in the last few years. So I think in cross, the biggest thing we were talking about was just we were definitely pushing really hard, and maybe pushed a little too hard and kind of got a little tired. And now that we got into indoors and through that, it's more of a getting our feet back under us, and all that work we put in during the fall is now starting to kind of gain traction. I think it just took time, and it definitely was a bummer to go ninth and ninth, but I think it was worth a little bit more this year, and it was definitely progress. But even though it didn't look like it on paper, I think it was progress as a whole, and I think it paid off working that hard during cross and kind of being disappointed like that rolling into indoors.
Something that I think so few athletes talk about that I'd love to get your opinion on is kind of the concept of having it on the day, or like the X factor or whatever you would call it factor, where you can be as fit as possible, but you have
Yeah,
to have it on the day and you have to execute on the day, because reality is there are probably, 30 different guys that could place in the top 10 depending on the day
right,
and depending on who has it. Obviously, I think that never makes you feel good when you're like, it almost leaves it up to fate,
yeah,
right? You're going to run all out and see how the cards shake up. But what's your opinion and take on like having it on the day, and how, the NCAA is so stacked that you
right.
just never know how other people are going to run come November.
No, I agree. I think Nico Young was a good example of that in the fall. A 12:57 guy this spring, and he got, I don't know, fifth or sixth across in a race where you would have thought he could win, especially after watching what he did indoors. I think there is a good part of like on the day whether you have it or not. I think consistent training obviously makes it easier to have it more often on the day. But I do think it just comes down to sometimes something just doesn't roll your way, or you can't make the move when you should. And but I think it's you can negate the percentage of the time that happens based on how consistent you are in your training and what you do. So I think, yeah, I do think it comes down to sometimes just on the day. I mean, I'd have to ask Nico about what he thought about that race, but I guarantee he'd be like, yeah, maybe it just wasn't my day type of thing. And I feel like, I was strong enough to hang with those guys, but on the day, I just didn't have it as much as I would hope to, and wasn't able to commit to the move. So I think there's aspects of both, but I think training and being consistent in your lifestyle will negate a lot of those.
Speaking of the race itself and where it was held in Charlottesville, Virginia, you are super familiar with that course, kind of not having
Yeah.
grown up there, but UNC runs there quite a bit and you've run there quite a bit in your collegiate career. Stillwater, they've ran it there a bunch of years and that always gets talked about as being an insanely brutal course. I'm not saying Charlottesville is harder, but I was surprised with how hard it looked and people's reaction coming out of it. I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's it's so easy compared to other courses," but coming out of it, I've heard opposing views. What's your
Yeah.
take on how hard this course is?
It's interesting because when I ran Stillwater, that course is like, it's definitely more grueling to look at, I guess. When you see those big hills, it's great footing there. Usually it's colder weather, which can be good. I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on how hard the course depends on how hard the race actually is. I think in Oklahoma, we didn't go out the year before nearly as fast as we did at UVA, which made, running a fast time on the course way harder. I don't know. I think they're both hard in their own ways. And I think it comes down to kind of just how the race plays out and how hard we run. And I think it ended up being UVA was a little harder out from the start and made it harder to kind of hang on. And there's a lot more moves, a lot more kind of, shuffling around of spots, which didn't make it any easier. But no, it's definitely both those courses. I don't think there's an easy cross country course that we run on consistently. So I'm excited for it to be at Wisconsin this next year. It's going to be a hard course as well. So, I think they're all hard in their own ways.
Something I think every coach says on the line or in their previous meetings or in the months leading up to the NCAA championship meet is, quote, "We need to be in good position from the gun." And because of that, I think it's fostered specifically over the past few years with how fit people have gotten the most insane, atrocious first half miles. I feel like every year has gotten progressively worse because the year before was worse than it was the year
hmm
before. Where people are like, it went out this fast last year, we got to even push it more. What's that atmosphere like in the first 2 to 3 minutes of the race, where it seems like everyone's sprinting for their lives, but in the back of my head as a viewer, I'm like, you still got like nine and a
Right.
half K left.
Hey, that's in my head when I'm on, the first K of a race. Like, why are we sprinting out? I kind of like to be up in a good position and not wasting a lot of energy fighting. But I think Milt talks about this a lot. Is like, get in your position, but there's no reason to have all this nervous energy. It's just gonna exhaust you when you get to 9K. It's gonna catch up to you. So a lot of it is like, get out where you want to be, but there's no reason to go sprinting out in front of everybody. Kind of just settle in, and you can move your way up over 2K to get to where you want to be as long as you're in a general range. It'll work out in the end. It's a 10K race and hills and grass. You'll make your move. So I do think coaches focus a lot on that, or athletes at least focus a lot on getting out the first K. And I do like getting into position myself into a good spot, but I think it comes with you got to hold yourself back. If I mean, sometimes there's no reason to be out in front like that when you can just work your way up. And I think that was definitely a shock for people at UVA this year. Was like, oh, I want to get out in front of everybody. But then if you're out in front of everybody, you're running 2:29 for the first K, and it's like, whoa, that's gonna come to haunt you at the end. So I think it's definitely a good aspect to like get out and get in your position, but no reason to waste extra energy if you're not there when you're 800 meters into a 10K. Definitely.
I don't remember the finishing time of whatever Grand Blanks won in, but let's just call it 29 minutes for the sake of my
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
Do you think if someone ran 29-minute pace even, like if they went into that race with the mindset of like 28:59 is going to win the NCAA championship, I'm going to run even splits, do you think they'd win? And obviously that time would win, but here's what I mean by
Yeah.
that. Would you just get like swallowed up and like either discouraged? Like, how does that basically what I'm trying to articulate is like, it's kind of necessary. Like for you want to win the race, right? You're
Yeah,
not playing
yeah.
around. You might be happy with the top 5 finish, but you want to win the race. It's pretty hard to win the race to move through all those guys, like you kind of have to put
Yeah.
yourself in it. So basically what I'm saying, do you even think it'd be possible if you were like incredibly strategic, try to pass all those people and run even pace? Would that even work? Or would you just get like swallowed out?
I mean, I think a lot of it, I know myself, especially, finishing a race or in the middle when there's a lot of people around you, you kind of get freaked out. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so far back from the leaders. Like, I need to get in position. And no, I think that'd be a really hard thing to do, mentally more so than physically. Just like being okay with having a ton of people around you and like not being able to see the front of the race. So I mean, I think it'd be possible. I can imagine. I mean, I just think it'd be really hard to mentally like stay in it and stay focused on like moving your way up. But you see the guys at Cross Nats that start out in like the 150s and they worked up really methodically and ended up way further up than people who started in the 50s and worked, their way backwards. And so I think there's, gauges to that. I think a lot of it, running your way to a, 50th is going to be different than running, trying to get in 50 and work your way back. But I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I think it would be an interesting thing to see somebody come from like way back and just run even splits and win the thing. But yeah, I think it'd definitely be tough.
You mentioned that Boston 5K postseason that a lot of top collegians do. You ran it in 2022 where you ran 13:19.7. And then this year after cross season, you ran 13:13.6 at the same meet. What was that like? What was the reflection on that? Obviously, as you mentioned, coming off of a race that you weren't too happy with, and then a year removed, running 6 seconds faster. What was your take on this one?
Yeah, I definitely, went in with more of a like, geez, I just got, worked by a lot of these guys. I'm about to race in a 5K. I'm just going to like kind of put myself in the middle of the pack and just see what I can do. I'm not even, I was, low expectations, and I think that helped a lot. And, it was nice to run a faster time. I was definitely a little more happy with how I ran it. I kind of was like back in fifth and then back to seventh. It was kind of bouncing around. And so I think I closed a lot of big gaps that happened. And I do think I could have like hung on to the top and kind of, been pulled to a faster time. But, I think it was good practice for how indoors was going to go. A lot of gaps, a lot of people falling off and having to go around and try to latch on to it. And it was definitely, I just didn't have expectations. So it was good to, get a PR and kind of end the season on a little bit of a better note and take a down cycle and get into, the actual indoor season come around again. So it was definitely a good race, good experience. I definitely had more confidence that I could hang with, those top guys I couldn't on the day in at UVA. And I think it just carried through indoors.
I know you're training and racing well throughout the winter, so it wasn't like you were discouraged, but I do want to get your take on how do you, as a top athlete in the NCAA, perceive and I don't even know what the word would be, like process. How do you process when you see a guy like Nico, break four indoors? You see the ridiculous conversion. You see him run 12:57, and you're like, I got to race that guy, but I also have to believe that I can beat him if I want any
Right.
chance at beating him. He's just one example. There are other guys that were running fast all season. How do you process other guys running fast? Do you try to turn off social media? Do you embrace it? What's that process like for you?
I think it's, it kind of fuels the fire a little bit. You see some people running fast and you're like, okay, that guy was just sixth at cross. Like, I think I could get close. And I think it's a good thing for like just the NCAA as a whole, just up in the level. I remember when I saw Nico around that time, I was like, that's good for the NCAA. Like, it's going to be a good thing that he ran that fast because it's just going to make everyone get better. And I mean, we have a lot of like international guys coming in from different countries. I think that's a good thing too. It just like kind of raises the level. I know a lot of people complain about it and are bummed to see that there's so many like, coaches going overseas to try to recruit people. But I think anything that makes the NCAA better is going to make me better and, make everyone else better in turn. And just, it kind of just raises the level of competition, which is going to raise, times and faster races. So it's definitely, it's hard to see, like, you see somebody run fast, like, man, I wish I ran that fast. I wish I was in that race to see what I could have done, but it all comes out in the wash in the end. And it's definitely a good thing for us to kind of see people running that well.
I feel like I saw you jump in with Ethan a bunch, run a bunch of quick miles. Was that kind of fun to shake things up and maybe be like, yeah, I can dip below in a distance and still run fast?
Yeah, it was definitely unexpected to race as many miles as I did, which was only three. But I definitely thought I was going to be racing less of them, and it was fun. I mean, it was the opener was I was like, yeah, it was solid. Felt good to kind of race one, and then ACC is it did feel good to kind of dip down and know that I can run a good mile as well. And big thing was just practicing closing, and we knew that at NCAA's it's unlikely that it's going to be hot from the gun. There's no pacer. It's not a BU setup to run fast, but so a lot of racing those miles was just kind of like practicing turning over the legs at a faster pace and doing something that maybe I'm not as comfortable with doing, a little less confidence in that event. And I think it turned out well and helped out just kind of closing down 5 and 3Ks in the end of the season. And it was a lot of fun too. It's fun to kind of do an event where you don't have a lot of expectations. So
What's the banter between you and Ethan on the warm up or going into these races? Are you like, I'm going to get
yeah.
your number today?
Oh
Or
yeah,
do you stay
a
quiet?
lot of smack talk with Ethan and I. We love it. He talks. We're pretty even on the track, I think, in terms of just like beating each other. So we like to talk a good bit of smack to fire. I think it's a good thing for both of us. We like to fire each other up, and I know that him beating me makes me better, and me beating him makes him better. So it's a friendly competition, but I think it's necessary for people to grow and get better. Coach Mill always says, Grant Fisher wouldn't be where he was without Sean. So I feel that way with Ethan a lot, and Alex and those guys. Like, having them work me in workouts or, beat me in a race makes me better. And I know that beating them, especially dipping down to, Ethan's event and beating him was, it ended up being good for him in the end. And I think, that constant rivalry a little bit or a little bit of friendly competition is always good. It's fun to do it. Yeah.
Would you rather do like a pure strength workout with Alex Phillips or like a pure speed session with Ethan?
Oh, geez. I don't know. I tend to work out with Alex more often. I love working out with Ethan. He's so goofy. He's just like, he cracks me up sometimes. But no, I don't know. That's a good question. Some of those days with Alex are just like miserable, but I know they're good for me. And same with Ethan. I mean, if I'm ever with Ethan and we're doing like 400s or something, it's just sometimes I just cannot. My legs don't move as fast as him sometimes. I don't know. It's two different ends of the spectrum, which is interesting. You have Ethan who's really good at the like shorter, faster stuff. I mean, he would smoke me in if we ever lined up for like a 200-meter race or something like that. Um, and Alex on the other end is like could probably do marathons right now, and he's just so good at the long stuff. So I don't know. I'd rather be right in the middle maybe than with either of them.
Have them
But
combine
right,
forces and get smacked by you.
right.
In the
But
middle, in the
no,
middle.
both are fun in their own ways, I guess. So yeah.
Take me through the 2024 NCAA Indoor Championships. You placed second in both the 3K and 5K, both a little different races, but similar endings.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I definitely went in with and I'm talking with Mill. He's like, man, this is not a winner bust scenario. Let's go, see what we can do. And a lot of it that helped out, which helped out at ACCs was just trying to put points on the board for the team. I mean, we had a chance to get top 5, and I think we ended up 5th as a team. And in ACCs, it was just like we went into the 3K at the end of the day. We just ran the mile final, and it was like, let's see how many points we can put on the board for the team to see if we can win the team title. And it ended up just taking a lot of stress off. So Milt was like, this is not win or bust. Let's go see if we can get some points on the board for a team and help out our teammates. And it was going into the 5K, I was definitely a lot more nervous. I feel like that happens a lot with those early events, 5K. And it's just like a lot of nerves, didn't know who's going to hang, how it's going to go out. And end up being like a kind of just like a bunch of different surges in the race. And I tried to take it with about 600 to go. And Nico was just stalking, waiting. So it was definitely a good experience. And like I think, after the 5K finish, coming back in that 3K, took a lot of pressure off. Got the 5K out of the way in a sense. And I was like, all right, well the 3K is just the cherry on top. Let's see kind of what we can do, who we can hang with, and kind of employed a different tactic of just like waiting to see what moves are made in the last 600. And I think I was definitely a little happier with how the 3K ended up and how well I was able to close. And I think it was a good confidence booster, finishing up the season like that and now ready to roll into outdoors. But it was definitely, it was good to finally kind of break the mold a little bit of placing the same as the year before. And, a little bit better finishing place this time and got some good confidence going into outdoors.
Yeah. What was that overall reflection on the indoor season? I feel like it went, of course you always have the hope you can win an NCAA title, but I would say from an outsider's perspective, went almost as good as you could have hoped it to go, specifically coming off of more of a disappointing finish to your cross season, as you mentioned. What was the takeaway from this indoor season?
Yeah, I think it was just, we took logical steps forward and definitely surprised myself here and there of just like, okay, I actually am, better than I thought at this sport. And, cross country was just, a big learning experience. And I think going into indoors, it was just kind of, let's see what we can do because I don't know really where I'm at. And it ended up in my favor and like helped out a lot. And I ran a lot faster than I thought I would at some points. And it was just good to see that I can compete with the top of the top again, and something I couldn't do on the day at UVA. And I definitely am excited to see where outdoors ends up because it got some good confidence going into it.
I have to ask you this question. I discuss this with Alex all the time. I say, Parker, you put him in the NCAA 10 years ago, he'd be winning everything. Does it sting a little bit knowing that? I mean, you have to know that deep down that like that 3K, 5K, you go back in time, no one's
Right.
beating you. It's modern day NCAA is so different.
It is different, but I think it's a good thing. It definitely is like, I talked to Ethan about this. He's like, man, a couple years ago, I probably would have won that thing. I was like, yeah, you would have, but we're running a lot faster now than they were back then, and so it's a good thing in the end. I think it'll make us better athletes, whether we decide to go pro or stay in the system, whatever future plans are. But I think it makes everyone better. I think it just ups the level of American distance running as a whole to see, the whole NCAA is getting faster, which makes the pros faster, which makes on the world, global stage faster. So it's definitely like kind of funny to think of it that way. And, I guess with new shoe technology, if I had to go back and run in the old spikes, I don't know. We'll see what I could have muscled out. But no, it's definitely it's a good thing for everyone to kind of, keep progressing the way we are as a whole.
Can you take me through, I think it was one of your first races this outdoor season. You ran a 5K and your clothes was absolutely insane. And I made the comment again to Alex that, you would win an NCAA title 10 years ago. I think you closed the race in a ridiculous mile time, but the breakdown of it was 64, 60, 59, 60. I mean, a last 1200 of 259 and change is just nuts. What was your take on that walking away from that so early season, just being like, things are rolling? I mean, you won dominantly.
Yeah, no, I definitely went in. Good competition in the race, and I was like, I guess we're just, the plan was to have the pacer go through I think 3K, if not more, if he could. And, plans change, and pacer popped off at like 5 minutes after running some 67s, 68s. Like we were definitely slow at the gun. So I took it from, I don't know, about 5 minutes in all the way through. And, it was good to know that I could take it from that far and then still be able to close that well. But, I mean, the goal was to try to close as close as floor flat as we could and kind of just practice a long squeeze, which was different than we did indoors. Indoors was kind of that practicing the mile pace on the end and being really able to turn over. And now I think, it was good practice to kind of take it from a ways out and just kind of squeeze it down from like 1200 out. And I would have liked to close the last 400 a little better, and I think it's kind of similar to how I was telling Milt this. It was similar to how indoor season started off. Start off with a mile indoors, 15 outdoors, and then a 3K indoors that I didn't close as fast as like not a flashy 55 last 400. It was kind of just like a long, consistent build up, and I think that was kind of how this 5K played out. And I think we're focusing and practicing on the right things and working that engine, especially on the back end. So it was good practice in the end, I think, was kind of the biggest takeaway.
As we're gearing up for, I would say postseason, ACCs is coming closer, NCAAs are coming closer. What's your take? Where are you at? What's your mindset going into these final few weeks?
I'm excited. Yeah. ACCs next Thursday is when it starts. So we're doing 10K and I think possibly 5K as well. I'm just excited to get after it. I mean, kind of, slow. We don't have that many races to open up. I just had a 1500 and a 5K. So excited to race a little more, get a little more, practice under my belt and, go up in the distance to the 10 at ACCs and, work with Alex and a couple other guys. And I think it's going to be, at least in the next week, a lot of fun of just team running. We've got like 8 guys entered in the 5K or something at ACCs. 6 or 8, one of the two, and it's gonna be a lot of like trying to get a team title or top top 3 team finish at ACCs and a lot of team running in the next week or so. And then into regionals, I think just get the job done and onto Eugene. Excited to be out there for the first time. I've never raced on the track, so just a lot of practicing to go, and excited to really give it a go when we get out to Eugene.
I have to ask you, what do you think it's going to take to beat Nico? I know an NCAA has been on your mind for years at this point. I'm sure you believe in yourself to win one. What's it going to take this year, you think?
I think it's going to take, I think a lot of it comes down to very small margins on the day. And like we talked about, I think, sometimes it is an on the day thing. And if someone's lacking a little bit, you got to try to take advantage of that. So he's a very tough man to beat, as I experienced indoor. So I think it's just going to take a lot of strength built up and being ready for it. And I know I can commit to moves and move when needed. So I think it's just going to take, sticking on it as long as I can. And then, a little bit to go, last couple laps, really seeing what we can do. Yeah.
I love Nico, so I wouldn't use this against him per se. But I mean, thinking back to last year, everyone thought Caitlin Tui was absolutely unbeatable. No one had any chance. And I forget what she placed in the 15. The fact that I don't remember says everything.
Right.
So you never know. And again, that's the thing. You have to have it on the day. It doesn't really matter what you did before.
Yeah. Nobody's invincible, that's for sure. So
yeah.
No, I think there's a lot of good guys that could have it on the day. I mean, the NCAA at this point is stacked with a ton of guys. So I think it's just gonna take whoever has the most guts to kind of push through and really make the moves and make the race. So I think that's what it'll come down to.
Would you consider doing the 10K at NCAA's, or is this purely an ACC get some good work in thing?
Yeah, I think this year we talked about it after Cross, and we're really building up just kind of strength this year, and Milt's really big on just kind of like really, really working the strength side of 5K guys. So I think next year is going to be more of the 10K year, kind of doing the 10K to tune up 4 or 5, kind of hit that far end of the spectrum. Hit a lot of miles indoors and a 15, so now time to kind of go above it and get a good aerobic hit. But I think probably most likely going to stick 5K going into outdoors and just race that regionals and nationals, and hopefully that is as well trials.
I got to ask you this question. You go on Instagram every day, you see a new collegiate athlete sign an NIL deal. Is Parker Wolfe's phone ringing? And what's your take on this?
I think NIL deals can be a good thing. I've talked to Mill about this a lot. Just I think right now focusing on the right things, and I would guarantee that I could probably reach out to people and find an NIL deal if I really wanted to. But I think right now, focusing on just kind of running and then deal with that stuff. I think it'll come when it comes, and kind of doing something that doesn't take a lot of stress and not a lot of work. Not a ton of posts a year or a month or whatever it is. I don't really know exactly how they work, but something just low stress and not a lot of time taken. I mean, we've got school and running and everything. It's a lot in itself. So I think I think NIL deals are really cool. I think making money on the side would be a great thing, but I think waiting for the right one, I think, is kind of what I'm doing.
Good mindset.
Yeah.
Good mindset. Let's close out today's conversation with some advice for our listeners. So a lot of people listening are in probably similar positions to you, gearing up for, if they're in high school, the regional meet, state meet, national meets coming up next month. If they're college, similar position to you. Other people, maybe marathons coming up. What would be the final piece of advice you'd have for people as they kind of lock in to these final few weeks of the season?
Yeah, I think, coming up to the end of seasons, people like to put on a big show and, pump themselves up to do something really special. And I think the guys that race the best or place the best really just keep things as neutral as they can. So, going into the NCAA meet or whatever you're doing with the same mindset as the opener, trying to do your best, not trying to step up and do anything, but, really hit a solid day. And we talk a lot about we do baseball analogies, hitting singles, making C+ days, B+ days as much as you can, and really just working on consistency throughout and not really trying to step up to race better, because I think it'll come to bite you in the end. But that's my biggest piece of advice.
Well, Parker, always appreciate my conversations with you. Both fun, insightful, all that fun stuff that makes a great podcast. Appreciate the conversation. Keep crushing it. And I can't be biased having a podcast, but maybe I'll be secretly cheering for you in Eugene. So keep up the great work. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you.